as the rental crisis continues to bite. Shock new research has today revealed the controversial measure that could save struggling renters billions.
Almost $4 billion. That's how much Aussie renters in capital cities could have kept in their pockets if rents had been frozen a year ago.
That means paying an extra electricity bill. That means food on the table. That means not being evicted into homelessness. It would be transformative for millions of renters.
New analysis revealing savings of more than $2,500 per household in Melbourne and Sydney and almost $3,000 in Perth. It comes as the Greens have released fresh data revealing that if a freeze was put in place now, Aussie renters would be spared almost $5.5 billion over the next year and almost $9 billion over the next 2.
There is a rent tsunami facing renters over the next 2 years. A rent freeze and cap is an essential part of any solution to the housing crisis. If we do not have a freeze on rent increases, we could see hundreds of thousands of renters shoved into eviction or financial stress.
Those rental figures, they're still too high, but they are lower than they would have otherwise been had we not stepped in with rent assistance. But I'm not prepared to go further than that today.
But some experts say freezes are a band-aid fix.
The big problem in Australia is we have a shortage of housing. You're reducing incentives for landlords and for investors. Why would they build more housing if they're getting a lower return than they can get elsewhere?
And there's a risk it could backfire.
It's supply and demand. When you have less supply of housing, prices, in this case rents, increase.
So would the Greens' proposed plan make the situation better or worse?
Well, Jordan Vandenberg is the Robin Hood of renting on TikTok, giving tenants a platform to voice their bad experiences. Geordie, how would you see this working?
Yeah, pretty well. It's pretty simple. Give renters a bit of breathing room and, let them spend money on something that isn't an ever-increasing, human right.
What have people told you about the difference that this would make to them, talking about those renters?
Yeah, well, I know people are choosing between, medicine or their rent, and you shouldn't ever have to choose between those two fundamental things that we require to be alive, or putting food on the table for your family, that kind of stuff. So rent is a massive pressure.
So there's no doubt that no one should have to make that choice. I think everyone's with you on that. The thing is, though, Professor Pingers, if I may call you that,
You may.
Well, thank you. I should have checked off air, but I just went with it, rolled the dice. The field evidence from around the world on rent freezes just isn't that encouraging. So, in the US, the result apparently was holiday houses were just left to become uninhabitable as landlords then claimed or made insurance claims on damage and things like that. We've seen an increase in the black market with rent bidding. So the official rent's one thing, but then you just get rent bidding happening in the background. In the UK, they found social segregation. So it just meant that landlords just gave all the properties to, professional families without kids or something like that. And actually it was the most disadvantaged who missed out on rent. In Berlin, there was a huge fall in the rental supply. These are really serious side effects. Isn't it a massive risk to just take something on like this?
Not really. We're not comparing like to like. In Australia, we have this culture of investing in housing, and we're not comparing the same government subsidies, the same kind of demographic breakdown, the same capital gains tax exemptions, discounts rather, the same negative gearing concessions to investing. So in America, where those things don't exist, putting a rent freeze in place, we're not having like-for-like outcomes.
No, but I just wonder why it could even potentially make the problem worse, couldn't it? Because the idea that you would then hold on to your investment property and then just let it be derelict, or that you would have black market bidding, or that you would have preferential treatment for certain landlords that disadvantage the most vulnerable. I would have thought if you're encouraged to be an investor anyway, wouldn't you just do that? Wouldn't that actually make the problem, exacerbate those effects? At
the end of the day, even if you can charge a little bit less rent, if you're going to get a capital gains when you sell the house. That's just how it's going to work. So I don't think it disincentivises people being landlords. But I think also what we need to consider is that this isn't the only answer to a housing crisis. This is a little band-aid that we can kind of put on a gaping flesh wound that we need to do with long-term policy solutions. Renters need some immediate assistance right now. And then, let's also work on, the bigger picture here.
Professor, always good to speak. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.